Bridges are stronger when built from both sides.
Hello, and welcome to Building Bridges, a show on the Greensboro Television Network that highlights ways members of the public and members of the Greensboro Police Department can connect with each other. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. Now, many people may not know that May is National Peace Officers Month. I didn't know that before. In 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. Locally, law enforcement agencies from around our area host a number of events to commemorate National Police Week, including a joint law enforcement memorial service on May 15th at 10 a.m. Now, today we're going to learn just what this service is all about and talk about the importance of honoring those who have given their life in service to their community. Let's meet our first guest. From the Greensboro Police Department, we have Chief Wayne Scott, Chief of the Greensboro Police Department. Also joining us is First Lieutenant J.C. Fuller from the Guilford County Sheriff's Office, who is organizing the Joint Law Enforcement Memorial Service this year. Welcome to you both on Building Bridges. This is something that a lot of people hear about, but they don't know really what it is. So let's explain what Law Enforcement Peace Officers Month is all about.
Absolutely. You know, across the country, we take a moment to sit and remember those individuals who, through law enforcement, whether it be police, sheriff's department, or highway patrol, whomever wears the uniform and defends the public, we take time to remember the service that they provide, and then unfortunately we have to remember those that have given the ultimate sacrifice and lost their life in the line of duty. And so it's an opportunity for us to come together as agencies to connect with our community and have some time of remembrance and to celebrate. And I think the celebration part is really important.
Lieutenant Fuller, do people in the public get involved very much with this particular week and day?
Yes, ma'am. A lot of folks will participate, and even just by the simple thank you to their local officers as they're in and out of restaurants or passing by or riding through their communities. And we'll see a good crowd that will come to the memorial service as well to pay that respect to our fallen and to the current men and women that are wearing the uniform today.
Is it true that a lot of people in our public really don't even know about this? They may see it on the news or something, but they don't know that they can be involved in it too. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You know, we get our community groups that we connect with, we get churches that will send out baked goods to us or what have you, but every year we encounter folks who are like, can we come to that? And I'll speak on behalf of local law enforcement here. We welcome that. We love to see fresh faces. I've seen children and parents and you name it. So it's always an opportunity for us to connect in the way that we like to connect, but equally to let our community know more about us and know more about really the human side of policing.
Now, you know, when I look at Guilford County detectives or officers and Greensboro officers, are you connected somehow?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why do you think people don't know that they can come to these events?
Well, because they may not be aware of the different type of things that go on in their local communities. Again, this is a combined service where all of the local law enforcement in this county come together. A lot of people may not know that we have an officer memorial on the governmental plaza, and of the 22 names of our fallen who have given the ultimate sacrifice. So just as the chief just spoke, we reach out to our partners in the community, and because we're there to serve them. I mean, we are their protectors, and we're out here on the road. When you know a citizen calls 911, they're expecting us to arrive, and of course, unfortunately, some of our comrades have made that ultimate sacrifice. So it just really does put just brings it all together on the human side, as the chief said, to where the communities can relate, community partners can relate, because they've had lost loved ones and so forth like that. Well, we also suffer from that as well.
So what does it mean to present day officers that we are honoring people in the past who have passed away?
You know, I think, and I'll go back to the question you asked a moment ago. One of the things I think can be a barrier is to the community is they see us in these uniforms,
Yes.
and they see us in this deep tradition that we have, and the way we perform our day-to-day duties. But it's not meant to be a barrier. We want to tell people about it, and that actually answers your second question. We are about tradition. You know, a lot of the young officers that you'll see at the memorial service, many of them were not even born when we're honoring people before they died.
I see.
And it's interesting, the tradition that goes on. There's a sense of pride among our organizations that we do remember one another. It's the perspective that no person, no officer, no deputy is ever left behind. The other great part of it is when we have surviving family members who come up and we share with them. So those family members know, and our new folks know, that no matter what happens to them, they're always part of the law enforcement family, and that's really important to us.
That's very important. I don't
Absolutely.
hear that many organizations claim that once we lose one of our employees, that the rest of your family is still with us.
Yes, and whether it be us or the Sheriff's Department or Highway Patrol, that is a kind of a key factor in law enforcement, that we will always be a family. And we reinforce it during this time of year. A lot of tears of excitement and joy to see people, a lot of tears of remembrance. But it's good for us, and I think it's great for our community to be part of it.
I think it's very good for that officer's family, too, because sometimes if they are killed, I hate to say that word, killed, while they're protecting the community, that makes the family feel that, well, it's almost like you owe us something. Is that how you think people feel?
Yes. One of the things that was most memorable in my case dealing with the memorial was Deputy Bain, who was killed in 1913.
Wow.
He is the first name on the monument, and his grandson came and brought it to our attention. We did not even realize, because of records that went that far back. And I was there when we placed his name on the monument that year, and I just saw the joy and the closure and the peace of mind, and how proud that they were that their grandfather was getting recognized for the job that they did for this community. And so it's an awesome experience for the officers and their families.
It sounds great. You were going to say...
No, the exact same thing. You know, we all have a personal connection. There's a name on that monument that was one of my classmates.
Oh, my.
And I know he the life he lived. I know his family. To this day, we talk on at least a yearly basis.
Oh.
And so the family connection is extremely tight. You know, there's a national memorial in Washington, D.C., and I'll paraphrase. There's an inscription there that says, the individuals here, both male and female, that are in law enforcement, should not be judged by the way they died, but by the lives they lived.
Right.
And that's it in a nutshell. That's what this ceremony is about. It's what this week's about. It's about remembering the lives, the people they touched.
So what is it about your uniforms that scare people? Because I'll tell you, I was at an elementary school some time back, and a police officer came to the front door, and I heard one of the little kids say, "Uh-oh." So we got to change that, right?
Well, you know, in Greensboro, and I know the sheriff's done the same thing, we have a variety of uniforms. We have some softer approaches, some polo shirts. But, you know, I always tell people the reason for the uniform is that it identifies us. And sometimes that's the exact same reason people are a little fearful, because it identifies you as a force. But when you're in trouble, I don't care if you're 2 years old or you're 80 years old, you want to see that uniform, you want to quickly identify. So it's kind of a constant discussion with us. How do we get there? But I think both our organizations have made some strides. You know, here in Greensboro, we're even getting before kids in elementary school.
Right.
I know you guys do the same thing, where it isn't such a foreign look. And so, but we hear that all the time. I mean, you know.
Well, I got to admit, I hear it because I've been working with TV. You know, you show up with a microphone and a camera, and they go, "Oh no, oh no, I'm getting ready to be on TV for some reason that I don't want to be there." Well, this event that's coming up, how old is it?
Do you know in our first year?
No, sir.
I can say I've been with the department 27 years, and it was prior to me even becoming an employee here. So we've been honoring this relationship for a long, long time, and it's changed a little bit over the years. And we adapt it. You know, we've had it indoors because of bad weather.
Yeah.
The idea of it started back in the 60s, when it was honored by the President of the United States selecting the month. And over the years, both our organizations, as well as the Highway Patrol and the High Point Police Department, do different things. High Point, their officers have a large bell in the parking lot of their police department. They ring the bell once for every one of their fallen officers. So you'll see it no matter what community you're part of, but it all has that similar theme, that same thread.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about what to expect with this upcoming event?
Well, we'll start on the 15th at 10 o'clock, and we'll have a welcome. We're going to have a combined honor guard. As you were speaking about uniforms, these are going to be the full dress honors. They look very sharp. And when I say combined, that means all the local law enforcement agencies in this county will come together. We'll present the flag. We'll do the national anthem. We'll have some words from some dignitaries that'll be there. And then the real moment is whenever the honor guard team will present the wreath on behalf of all law enforcement. And for each rose that will be placed on that wreath will signify the life of that particular officer that we'll be calling out. And we will read through all 22 names. And the department heads will take the time and show remembrance. And we also at that point invite the families, if we have any of the family members there, to come and be a part of that and walk up with the department heads and just take as much time as they need just to reflect back on the life that they lived, and not necessarily get hung up on why they're not here, but because just to remember them. And hopefully the family and the community will know that we'll never forget these folks. I mean, without them paving the way, we wouldn't be here today. So, so it'll be very. We will do the 21 gun salute. That is a very loud, especially inside that plaza. But we'll do the 21 gun salute. We'll play taps, and High Point Police will have our Officer Rosser with High Point Police will be doing our bagpipe, and that's always playing Amazing Grace, and it's just a wonderful time.
Oh, it sounds delightful. And I understand that other agencies, maybe not police departments, participate. Is that correct?
Well, law enforcement in particular. So we have police, fire, our federal partners will have representatives there, the Secret Service, the Marshal Service, anyone who does the job. Again, it's a very similar thread that binds us all together, that on a daily basis, someone in our organizations may have to put their life out there to protect someone. And that's what the memorial's about. So it's a moving time. There will be very few dry eyes at the end of it.
I can imagine. I'm sitting here getting wimpy now because it sounds delightful that you're looking back on these people. So anything being done for the current officers?
Well, you'll see most of our organizations will wear what we call a mourning stripe across our insignia during that entire week, and that is their individual officer's way of remembering and being part of it. But we have several events at GPD. We do a large police citizen community banquet where we honor both citizen heroes and our police heroes of the month. I know the sheriff does some different items as well. Yes,
and a lot of our community partners, churches and businesses and so forth, they get involved in providing snacks, food to the deputies and officers that are on duty that don't necessarily get that time to really sit down. So it's just a number of things that will go on that week and then weeks after that.
Absolutely.
So what is the Go Blue symbol? What does that mean?
Well, blue has been adopted pretty much across the country to represent law enforcement, and it's kind of funny. GPD, we wear black uniforms, the sheriff wears tan, but blue is the color of law enforcement. So we encourage folks to show their remembrance by switching out and putting in a blue light bulb or a blue spotlight. You'll see some things in downtown Greensboro and other areas where it's just a way to remember it. It's kind of just a visual symbol that, hey, I know what's going on, and it means a lot to our folks.
And I think so many of us who see officers who are in different colors, white, black, beige, all those colors, and so I was confused by the Go Blue, but blue is the color, right?
Blue's the color of law enforcement. When you look at the largest departments in the country, whether it be Chicago or New York, they traditionally wore blue uniforms forever, and instead of saying, hey, go with tan or black or whatever, blue's just a color we identify with. Our national monuments always have blue symbolizing the monuments, and so it's a connector for us all.
That sounds good. Well, thank you for telling us this much. Don't go away. I have more questions. Just hang in there. You know, National Police Week is May 13th through 19th. The Joint Memorial Law Enforcement Service is May 15th at 10 a.m. at the Governmental Plaza just outside City Hall, and it is open to the public. Once again, it's open to the public. Now, for more information about National Police Week, go to gsopd.org, and we have more of all of this coming up after the break, so stay with us. Welcome back to Building Bridges, a monthly show that brings together police and community leaders to make our city safer. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. Now, if you're just tuning in, today we're talking about National Police Week and the annual Joint Law Enforcement Memorial Service held locally. We just had a wonderful conversation with Lieutenant Fuller of the Guilford County Sheriff's Office. Joining us now is someone who understands all too well why this National Police Week is so important. Please help me welcome Cindy Winslow Young, Cindy's brother, Officer Michael Gray Young, let me say it again. Her brother, Officer Michael Gray Winslow, is one of the GPD's fallen officers. Every year, Cindy's family presents that award to the most outstanding officer in each police academy class. So welcome, Cindy. Really nice to have you. Thank you for joining us today to talk about something that's all very important to the police department, but we got to feel it's important to the community also. Right? So let me ask you, why is this annual event so important, especially to those of us who are not officers?
It's important because for my family, we remember Mike every day. I mean, there's not a day that goes past that we don't remember Mike. And we going down the road and you'll pass a police officer's car and immediately, you know, those thoughts will come. But this, especially on this one day a year, it gives us a time to come together with other families who have lost officers. It gives us a time to come together with what we consider our other family, our GPD family. And even though it can be a very sad and sobering event, I mean, the taps are hard, the gun salute is hard. These people are heroes, and they deserve the recognition that they receive, and it is something that my family and I have not missed. I'm not exactly sure how many years it's been done, but my brother's end of watch will be 40 years this year. And ever since this began, we have not missed one, and will not miss one.
Well, tell us about your brother.
My brother, ever since, we were only 17 months apart, so it's almost like being twins, but ever since I could remember, that's all he talked about was being a police officer, but specifically a Greensboro police officer. So as time went on, he did everything he could to get himself ready to be a police officer. He was an Eagle Scout. He joined the Marines so he could go through basic training and became a member of the reserves. He was the last cadet that they had in what was then the cadet program here at the police department. So when he got that letter inviting him to attend the 50th Police Academy, I mean, it was just elation on his part. His dream was in the process of becoming true.
Oh, my.
So he attended the 50th PBGC, and then he wasn't quite old enough to, he wasn't 21 yet, so he had to wait from, I believe it was October to February until he turned 21 to be sworn in. Oh, and I've still got the picture of my dad pinning him with his badge and so forth. And then, unfortunately, his accident happened 4 months later at the age of 21.
You know, I hear you talking about your brother, and I know you are in charge of so many officers. Is there a group that are born to be officers and another group that just needed a job?
I would say yes. You know, I've known Cindy and her family and her mom and her late father for all my career, and you hear that story played out amongst a lot of our folks. We do on occasion have people who come and look for a job, but for the most part, they don't stay very long because the requirements to do this kind of work, they're not about the paycheck. It's just interesting to see that story. You could probably take that exact same script with most families that are sitting in the same position And that's what's really great about the Memorial Week, because we get an opportunity to come together and in a very respectful way. We exchange those stories among other people. And, you know, Cindy said it best. We're family, and they're family, and there will always be part of the GPD family. And family sometimes has to come together in these events and hold each other and remember and move forward.
That's right, whether you're a police officer or anybody else.
Exactly.
So the police officers that you deal with today, the ones who are just new to the business, do you see any of Michael's traits in some of them?
You see some. You see some. You know, generationally, people change, and I'm sure when I became a police officer almost 30 years ago, they said, man, they've changed a lot. You know, but we see skill sets are a little different now. You know, technology is second nature to our younger generation. But again, those who really take to the job and stay, they're here because they care about people, they're dedicated. And as Cindy talks about her brother, you can visualize this individual who wanted to help. He was a veteran. He was, you know, he spent his time in the Scouts and whatnot. And that's the model of a police officer, and that really hasn't changed. And I'm very proud of that as a profession. At the end of the day, I think if you survey the majority of our folks, why are you here? Because I want to make a difference. And that's what sets law enforcement slightly apart from most other careers.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know it's one that people are very dedicated. Tell us more about the Winslow Award.
After my brother was killed, my parents, as hard as losing a child was, and they were going through that process, they wanted to come up with a way to honor my brother and keep his memory alive. So they worked with the police department and came up with the Michael G. Winslow Award. And this award is presented at each graduating class. It's voted on by the class members, and it's considered the highest award that a recruit can receive. So it's quite an honor. When my father was still living, he and my mother would come present the award, and now I'll bring my mother and she comes and presents the award. And
That's wonderful.
it's interesting because we'll still have people who have received the award reach out to us. When one of my kids was coming through middle school, the school resource officer pulled him out of class one day to tell him, I got your uncle's award, which was a really neat thing because he was able to tell my nephew more about my brother because my son, because he never had the opportunity to meet my son. So
Well, it sounds like it's something, not just an award that the city gives to somebody. It feels like you're giving your heart to
right,
people.
and I have had officers tell me how much that means to them. Of any award that they received or any recognition they received, that's the one that they feel the most important.
So how can the public be more supportive of not just that 1 week or that one day, of the police department year-round?
Well, you know, I think Lieutenant Fuller, who was on before the break, mentioned this. Sometimes it's just an acknowledgement. Our officers work fairly long hours in a given day, and they in Greensboro, they may answer 20-plus calls in a day.
Oh, goodness.
And so, you know, it never gets old for someone to just come up and say, hey, I appreciate what law enforcement does. Thank you for what you've done. An acknowledgement that, listen, I know your job is a little difficult. We're not blind to what's happened across the country in the last few years. Law enforcement is not the popular job that it once was. But you know what? I find more often than not, people still respect it. And that's what we ask, is just understand that it is a difficult job, and that acknowledgement goes so far. I will tell people, little kids will come up and they'll go, hey, I want to meet the police officer. I say, always wave. Always wave. And nothing means more to me as the chief of police. I can be in my car and I'll see a 3-year-old, you know, waving from a car seat. And that's just a great connection there. And I'll say most of my officers just want to hear that. The other stuff is really nice, but just an acknowledgement.
You know, my husband is a war veteran, and so when we go places and someone, a clerk or whatever, discovers that he is, they'll say, by the way, thank you for your service.
Right.
And I just wonder if we shouldn't be doing that with police officers.
And a lot of people do. A lot of people do that to us, just say thank you for your service. And most of my folks are very humble, and they'll go, oh, thank you, and just keep going. And it's just some form of acknowledgement. You know, you asked me about the color blue, again, representing it either with a blue floodlight. You know, there's a lot of the stickers that go on cars now. We support our local law enforcement. Here in Greensboro, we had a couple of communities begin to create their own yard signs. It said, I support the Greensboro Police Department. And people have seen them and said, did the police create those? No, actually, we had a couple different communities that went out and did them themselves. So those things are incredible to kind of, you know, pick you up when you're down, maybe having one of those days you've been from a call that isn't comfortable, and you look and you go, I'm making a difference.
You know, that's what's so exciting to me about this show. It's not just all about the Greensboro Police Department. It's not all about the community. It's about the two coming together and making their lives better, you know, helping police officers do the things they do and keep us safer by paying attention to them, you know.
Right.
So how can members of our community help with the week that's coming up, or the day, or the rest of the year?
Well, obviously, we have several events, and you know, we covered. We'll be on the internet. We'll do press releases. We have the memorial banquet, which is open to the public. By the way, people want, you know, you get to buy a ticket. We have people in the community come sponsor a table. I've had friends who will sponsor a table and go, listen, just let some officers come, and you know, that kind of thing, or come and sit and listen and kind of digest it a little bit. But like us on social media. You can share those posts. You can come to the public events. We have a 5K run that actually starts the week off, which is all the proceeds go to one of our charitable organizations. We have a group of folks that cycle across the state that end up going to Washington, D.C. They come by. Again, just stopping, supporting. Cindy will tell you she's been to a lot of these. Just having folks there and saying thank you, or offering a bottle of water to the bicyclists when they come by. It means the world to them. So be present. You know, at the end of the day, take a minute or so out of your day that week and come share with us. That's what we'd ask you to do.
Is there anything in particular that you and your family do that would be just a piece of cake for everyone in the community?
Oh, absolutely. The number one thing, and as Chief Scott said, the number one thing is thank them. Thank them for their service. The second thing I would say also is to pray for them. Pray for their safety. Thank them for their service and pray for their safety. Those are the two most important things that are easy for you to do. One thing I'd like to expand on is the police memorial that he mentioned is in Washington, D.C. I'll have friends that are going up to the Washington, D.C. area to see the monuments. And of course, you've got your standard monuments, which everyone should go see, but I always say, are you going to the police memorial monument over there? Well, I don't know anything about that.
Yes.
And it's not too far off the beaten path, but to go to that and stand there and see there are over 21,000 names of fallen officers engraved on that. And it's just sobering to stand there and think about the sacrifice that these men and women have made, as well as their families. I mean, there's children involved, there's parents involved, there's siblings involved.
So if a family came to you now, a family that does not have a police officer on duty or have one that fell, what'd be the one thing you'd tell them to do?
I would tell them to stay involved with the police department, because that keeps your connection with your loved one and what they loved so much and what they were doing. And you really do become part of the family. And I can just give you some small examples, because most of the folks that my brother would have continued serving with have retired by now. But they still call. My father has passed away. They'll still call my mother just to check on her, just thinking about you today.
Wonderful.
Do you need anything? What can I do for you? There was an incident not too long ago where I had to take her to the emergency room, and the police officer on duty, who was not one that served with my brother, but recognized her name on the roster and immediately came to the emergency room. What can we do? You know, is there anything that you need? So just staying in touch. They'll seek out my mother if they see her out and about and speak to her. And of course, they stay more in touch with me through social media, but it's just been really neat. But that's the one thing I would say is stay involved with what your loved one really gave his or her life doing, because it'll make them still feel a part of you and you feel a part of them.
That's great. So if there's one thing, let's say if my family does not have a fallen police officer or one who's currently working, what can that family do?
So it's a perfect opportunity. We have a week coming up. They have a multitude of different opportunities. You know what? Come downtown, stop by the memorial. If you can't come at one of the appointed times, if you stop by the police department or the sheriff's department, an officer comes out, shake their hand. It'll go a long, long ways. Just that acknowledgement. Or social media is great now. You know, like our pages on social media. Let's get the word out. any little thing actually makes
And
a
that's
huge
simple
difference. It's
because
real simple.
my word, social media is like the lifeline for
Right.
all of us.
It is.
So all you got to do is go on there and say something.
Last year, Susan filmed the police memorial service onto Facebook, and it was amazing the number of, well, number one, my kids, but amazing the number of my friends across the U.S. watched that
That's wonderful.
through Facebook. I thought it was the best thing ever, and it was awesome.
That seems like a very simple way
Right.
to show your support.
And then they were able to reach back out to us and my, my family, and I shared it with my mother and say, we saw this, and it was really, they didn't have to physically be here, but they gave their time to, to return their respects.
Now, I think that is wonderful. Once again, let's remind people of the dates, the times, and give them information in case they want to know more. Or in case somebody wants to call you and say, is there anything in particular I can do that day? Once again, the date is, let me look it up here, May 13th through 19th. The Joint Memorial Law Enforcement Service is May 15th at 10 o'clock in the morning at the Governmental Plaza just outside City Hall. And that's where the memorial is also.
Yes, ma'am. It sits on the plaza, and all these, we'll be putting press releases out. You can check our social media. We will be updating every event that we have, so it's always there for them.
Well, you've made me excited about it.
Good.
I want to do something. Thank you both very much for
Thank
joining
you.
us today. I'd like to thank our guests, Lieutenant Fuller, Cindy Winslow Young, and Chief Scott, for reminding us to support our law enforcement community. National Police Week is the perfect opportunity for us to honor and thank police officers and their families for all they do to keep us safe. Take the time to tell an officer, thank you. Hang up blue ribbons or a balloon or attend one of the local events that supports our officers. I'd like to thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Sandra Hughes. Be safe.
This show was funded in part by the Greensboro Police Foundation, an independent nonprofit organization whose mission is to enhance Greensboro's economic strength by promoting the safest city possible for its residents, workers, and visitors through support of the Greensboro Police Department. For more information about the Greensboro Police Foundation, visit www.greensboropolicefoundation.org.